What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about early access for games. Now, I'm not talking about games that come out in early access. I'm talking about literally getting the game early. And this has been something that I think has progressively gotten worse as an industry. I want to talk about, at least in my opinion, how I feel like we let it happen. We've let it get to this point. And why is it a bad thing? Or if it's a bad thing, you guys can absolutely, chime in the comments if you even think it's a bad thing. And if it is bad, how do we kind of reverse it and try to fix this problem? A few days ago, Epic Mickey was, the release date for it. It's not the worst example. This is just an example. We're going to talk about ones I think are far worse. But Epic Mickey does a thing where if you pre-order the game, you're going to get 24-hour early access to it. But you can't get it physically, and you can't get it on PC. So if you have it on console and you're doing it digitally, which is a lot of people that buy these games, right? I think that's also why companies have become more comfortable charging for early access or just doing it all together, because when it's digital, you can just do that, right? But one thing that's always kind of ticked me off about it is if you're doing early access, and the longer you do early access, right? You get 2 days early, you get 3 days, you get 5 days, you get 10 days, whatever it might be. The more you do that, it's like, well, then your game was ready to go like 2 weeks before. And at this point, I think this is actually quite obvious, you're charging for people to play the game just a few days before others. That fear of missing out, I think, is very powerful. It continues to get more powerful in a social media age, right? Content creation, I think, is kind of different, but also kind of extreme, right? Because it's like, okay, well, you want to cover a game, you want to play that game, and then if you have to buy or spend an extra $10, $15 to play it a week or whatever early, from a content creator thing, it's like, well, maybe you have to do that because the content's not going to work so well a week after some other people maybe took that dive. And then just that fear of missing out from general, which to a large degree, I am a general customer. Same thing. You say, oh my God, well, all these people get to play the game. And if you get to play the game a week early or even 3 days early, you can knock a sizable chunk out of that game out. And I haven't even started yet, right? So I really feel like, don't take it fully the wrong way, I guess, like predatory in the way that it is preying on your fear of missing out. I really feel like companies have figured out, people do have a fear of this. People are willing to spend even more money than they already do on these things, even though sometimes our games aren't that great. They're going to spend even more just so they can play the game a little bit early than their fellow, fan online. And I think where I find the most issue in this, well, it's two things, right? Charging for it is, I think, a big thing. And then also the fact that I think the window is becoming bigger. Those are my two main, critiques with the system. And I would say, like I said in the beginning of the video, not like you and me per se, but I think the general consumers have generally let this thing happen because something like Epic Mickey, I mentioned as an example, not too bad. You pre-order it, you get a day early access. 1 day is not terrible, and pre-ordering it, you're going back again to that system of pre-ordering versus not pre-ordering, but you're not paying anything extra. You're literally just pre-ordering it. So I can get down with that, a little bit more. But used to be 2-3 days, right? And even like WB, obviously, I've covered Hogwarts Legacy quite a bit, or maybe the most of any human being on planet Earth. Hogwarts Legacy did it. A lot of games have done it really in the past 2-3 years where you spend the extra, and it's normally around $10, right? Normally around $10, and you're going to get the game about 2 to 3 days, somewhere in that range. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 3. Okay. That on its own is bad, but it's not awful, right? It's $10. It's your right. It's my right to spend it or not spend it. You know what I mean? But still, it's $10. It's maybe like in that way, you're looking at a sizable chunk of a percent of how much a game, if a game costs $60 or $70, $10 is a pretty good amount of that percent. Like it's a high percentage point, and you're doing it just to play the game 2 to 3 days early. So I think that's how it starts. And what I think you're starting to see, and granted, I really only have one in my memory just off the top of my head. A recent example is actually my game of the fall, a game I cannot freaking wait for, but I am going to be critical when it needs to happen, and I think it does. Life is Strange. So Life is Strange, I don't need to give you my pitch meeting of how excited I am for it, but Life is Strange is doing an interesting thing where you're actually going to be able to get the game, I believe, 2 weeks early. And that, to me, signals, now that's Square Enix, right? I highly doubt Deck 9 said that. I imagine that's a Square Enix prerogative type thing. This, I believe, is the beginning of continuing to push it. Because we've already allowed, in a general sense, them to push it a little. We've already given the okay that 2 to 3 days is acceptable, and people will be, including myself. Again, like, I'm not saying like these people are condemned or these people are going to certain places. No, I mean, look, maybe I'm hypocritical or whatever. Have I done it before? Well, Hogwarts, they gave it to me. I'm sure I've done it before. I'm sure I've paid extra money to play a game a couple days early, but not often. Like, I haven't done it too much. And it just feels like more and more games are starting to do it. Like, really, like, again, I don't know a percentage, but it just feels like, and I keep an eye on a good amount of the industry, it feels like this is happening more and more. And then the Life is Strange thing, to me, signals, and that's episodic, so maybe it's a little bit different, but I still think other companies might look at it and say, man, can we get away with 2 weeks early access? And guess what? 2 weeks is a whole lot more than 2 days. So if we're charging $10 to play the game 2 or 3 days early, we want to do 2 weeks. Man, we can charge maybe $20-$25. Now, okay, that's not what Life is Strange is doing. That's not what's happening. But I don't know if that second part isn't true. And again, the thing I just can't wrap my head around fully is, if you're willing to, like for Life is Strange, if you're willing to give the game out 2 weeks early, then it's done 2 weeks early. Then just, and I guess there's actually 2 ways that goes. Number one, it's like, well, just have the release date be 2 weeks earlier and then don't do the early access. I mean, that's really pushing back, right? But okay, just release the game 2 weeks early. Now, the other side of things, I think people would maybe make a fair point in saying is, at what point are we playtesting the game for these people? You think about games that are in early access in general. Like, okay, now we're talking about games like a Multiverses when it first comes out or things like that, right? When a game like that comes out, in a sense, especially like free-to-play ones, you are freely playtesting the game for the company. You are participating. Maybe you're invited in through a sign-up sheet, on their website and stuff. You are actively and voluntarily playtesting the game for them. It's literally in early access. At what point, if they keep giving now? That's the name, early access. So, okay, you look at early access for Life is Strange. You look 2 to 3 years down the line when X game does the same thing and say it's 3 weeks early, right? At what point is that game actually not done? See, I'm assuming the goodwill of the developers that the game is ready 2 weeks earlier than it needs to be, right? I'm assuming that. That's not how the gaming industry, honestly, you have those day one patches that will fix sizable chunks of the game. What happens when you play a game and you've bought it? You spend that extra $10, $15, $20 to play the game early. You're playing it weeks early, and then the game is not actually finished, and you're, in a sense, playtesting it for them, and then they do the day one patch when the game comes out 2 weeks after you got it, but you're the one who spent the extra money. At what point does that happen? I think that's imminent. I think that's within the next year. You're going to see examples of a game that goes, and maybe it's Life is Strange, maybe it's not. I don't want it to be. I want Life is Strange to be the perfect game. Trust me, nobody wants it more than me. But at what point does that happen? And you've paid the extra $10 to $15, you're playing it 2 weeks early, and then you go online on Twitter or whatever, and you see, oh my God, I'm playing this game and it's not ready. They didn't do the day one patch or anything like that. At what point does that happen? I think that is very, very close to happening. I don't keep track of every game on planet Earth. Maybe it's already happened, but that's where I think we're going, right? It's either that, or the space between when you get it and then when it releases becomes even larger, right? Where 2 to 3 days is like Hogwarts Legacy 2 comes out and it's 5 or 6 days instead of 2 or 3. And they keep extending it. And then because you're getting it even earlier, they charge you more. Instead of $10 for 2 or 3 days, now it's $15 for 5 or 6. I 1000% think that's where we're going because we've already allowed it. Again, not necessarily you and I, but like the industry has allowed it to already start from, say, an Epic Mickey is probably the most tame one. And that's happened before, and that used to happen. Imagine that. That's where the starting point is. And then you look to like the WB kind of model. They've done it actually quite a lot, not just with Hogwarts, 2 days. A lot of multiplayer games too will do it. I think Call of Duty maybe's even done. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I'm sure multiplayer games have done it 2 or 3 days early access, but you have to pay a little bit more. So we've already seen it start to extend. And then what happens when it extends too far? And I think we're very close. I think Life is Strange has already extended it too far. Although it's my game of the fall, I mean, if you've been watching the channel, you know how much, I've been wanting that game literally, like, my whole life. I mean, I guess the last 9.5 years. But I got to be critical on something I just really don't agree with. I don't like that. Not even, I mean, look, will I do it? I mean, to play Life is Strange 2 weeks early, see, that's a huge fear of missing out thing. I've been asking for this game for almost a freaking decade. That is tough to say no to, and I'm a weak man. I'm probably going to do it. But the thing is, okay, well, maybe that's not the worst case. Maybe it gets worse after that. I guess the main thing with the Life is Strange example is what message does it send the rest of the industry? Not even that maybe that's the worst thing that can happen. What does a Ubisoft or an EA or an Xbox or a PlayStation, what do any of them learn about it? I think is Astro early too? See, I don't even remember. But what does the industry learn from Life is Strange? And then they try to push it and maybe extend it a little bit more on their own end. That's always the thing that scares, and I think I've talked about that pretty fairly in general. It's never really just about one thing, damning one specific game, damning one specific company. The way I always try to look at, and I think there's a lot of evidence in my videos, the way that I look at it is, okay, well, somebody maybe messes up, in a major way. But okay, I mean, it happens. But what does the industry learn? Like, is it bigger than them? And oftentimes it is. Often it's, okay, not just was that a bad thing that happened, but now the industry saw it, and they're going to take advantage, and they're going to go even further, and it just hurts the entire industry. That's generally how I try to look, and that's what I think this entire video is about. Not an Epic Mickey, damning video. Not saying that you shouldn't get Life is Strange, but these things are just two examples of like dozens and dozens and dozens over the last couple years, and this is a more new thing. This is something that I think developers, or I'd say publishers, right? Publishers, I think, have realized in the last couple of years, maybe because of the digital-only kind of push, maybe because of, you know what, in 2020, maybe they realize, hey, because we're doing so much digital, we can get away with giving out early access. Early access is already a thing. That's another one, right? Because games are in early access, they can kind of twist the word almost, or use it in a different light and do it for their own games. And I really think that's what we've seen. So, to quickly end this, how do you fix it? I said this in a live stream. It might suck, but I think you actually have to eliminate the entire thing. Eliminate even the 2 or 3 day thing, even the Epic Mickey. See, I even have it physically here. Even the Epic Mickey thing, get rid of it. Because again, like, the Epic Mickey thing is not bad, and pre-ordering for a day or doing it for free, like, that is the most tame, because you're literally not paying at all, and you get it 24 hours early versus other people. There's not really downside unless you don't trust the game, right? Unless you're waiting for like impressions and stuff. But you are preying on those people. You are telling people that's the wrong practice, right? We want you to pre-order it. Don't look at the day one stuff. We want you to get it before day one. So if it's messed up, you're already locked in. You know what I mean? That's the mentality, I think, of the executives and the publishers, and that's why pre-ordering, to a large extent, pre-ordering was bad, in the first place. But I think you have to kind of eliminate the entire thing, because as I constantly say, not just in this video, but all of it, well, what did I just say, right? Developers or publishers look at a thing that happens, and then they learn from it, and you give an inch, they take a mile. And that happens all the time for all different things. So in order to stop something, you have to eliminate everything. You can't just say, okay, well, we have to have a limit, right? So no more 2 weeks. Now it only can be 1 week. You can get a game 1 week early, and that's it. No, I think you actually have to eliminate the entire thing. No more paying for it. No more, even an Epic Mickey, no more pre-ordering it. The game comes out the day they say the game comes out. It's not the game comes out 3 different times before the game, actually releases. And that's extreme. That's extreme, but we've let it get so far that you have, either it keeps there's only 2 ways it goes. It keeps going, or you stop it. That's it. And the way you stop it is by eliminating, I think, the entire thing, or maybe putting a cap, right? Like literally stopping it at its, in its tracks. But, to allow it to keep going, I can say with quite high I just feel it. I think there's more than enough evidence in the gaming industry. If you don't stop this, and not you or me, we're not going to make laws to stop it, all this kind of stuff. But if somebody out there, whoever needs to, if they don't stop it, you're going to see in a couple years a game. What if GTA, which I don't know, but what if GTA does 2 weeks early access and you have to pay an extra $20? They would get away with it. I would do it. You would do it. Everybody would do it. And guess what? Then games would do 3 weeks early access for $30. It would get so much worse. That can happen. And I think it will happen. Maybe not with GTA, but I think that's like, that's the path that we're going down. That's the way it's going to be unless somebody stops it. So just want to throw, a rant type video. I think you guys generally like when I do these. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.